Hello, welcome back. Grillenheimer with another accidental thoughts of common sense. I taught for 2 years. It takes a lot of patience to teach kids. And of course, I don't teach anymore. And that's a part of my life I really didn't want to, really say too much about background. But it was back in the 90s. And back then, and I've mentioned parts of this before in various avenues, that how government was creeping into our roofs, into our homes. The PC movement was still fairly early, but really sinking its teeth into all of us, wanting politics in everything. It wasn't really as big as it is now. It really isn't. The Clintons were in power, for lack of a better term. And we had a fear of Big Brother, the fear of our neighbors snitching just because we pop our kids, disciplining our kids. If just for the sake of discipline, if your kid actually thinks you went too far, or just mad that they were, whatever they like was taken away from them, so they're gonna go tell another adult and say, oh, mommy and daddy is hitting me, or something crazy, something that's may not actually be the truth, or stretching the truth. And then, crazy things were happening. There was a fear among many families and many parents that, oh gosh, I can't touch my kids, I can't spank, I can't do this, I can't do that. What can I do? How can I discipline my kids? This fear was very real. And it got real into certain schools as well. As long as you went to certain very rural public schools and you signed like a little waiver, they would still paddle your kids in school. That's when they started taking paddling out of schools. Kind of started in the 80s, really, or late 80s, but in the 90s it was full blown. Sorry, I'm in this one. And then once becomes a lack of discipline, came the shot up of, oh, well, my kid can't focus. They have ADD, ADHD. I'm not saying this stuff isn't true, because both my kids may very well have some of that. And against my will, one of my kids is taking drugs for it. And I think all they needed was some discipline and focusing. I don't think they need it, because they can focus and do whatever they want to and whatever they not want to do, as opposed to things they need to do. And it's all part of parental discipline and taking the time and energy, because it can take energy out of you trying to discipline a kid. And I'm not talking about spanking, but everything, just saying no, you can't do that. No, you shouldn't do that, because they're going to come back with a question, why? Why not? They're going to challenge you. And I got into a really big reply on one of black conservative, oh gosh, which one was he? Not one of the BCP guys, not the guy that talks slow, not the one that's a lawyer. I think he's a lawyer or he owns a business, but it's the other guy. And I like them both, I listen to them both. And somewhere in the comments, I just, boom, you want to call it a woot, a wall of text or whatever. I had a really good reply concerning a lot of this, and how the fear of parents disciplining their own kids very well. And I'm not saying this is what happened, but it could be a almost near direct and indirect correlation to drugging up your kids for the sake of control. And that goes back to the 90s. And a lot of these kids didn't need this stuff. A lot of these kids just needed some push, some discipline. No, you shouldn't do that. No, you need to do that. No, you need to do this instead of this. You need to listen. You need to pay attention, et cetera, et cetera. Because me as a teacher, I was seeing kids use that opportunity because the drugs had to be kept where? At the office. So when it's time and it's after lunchtime or before lunchtime, whenever they're supposed to take their medicine, they would take their loving bloody time to get to the office, to come back to the office. And it seemed like after about 15 minutes or so, after they had supposedly taken this medicine, they were in la-la land. They couldn't focus because they were half drugged up. Especially in the setting that I was teaching. They were just... And it's like, okay, do this, do that. I'm not gonna. Well, it was music. Pick up your instrument, do this. We need to start here. Measure 10. Do it over and over. Let's do this. Make sure you're listening to the people around you, etc. But when they're just sort of half holding their horn, and they're just dazed and looking somewhere, they're not focused. And this would be after they took this medicine, not just before. So in direct correlation to what I'm seeing with the fear of this sickness, the current sickness that started March 15th, March 16th, the Ides of March 2020. What is the solution? Getting poked. Getting your 2 pokes and then your booster poke and then another booster poke and then your 2 pokes again and then a booster and then, when's it going to end? And I'm not against vaccinations at all. I normally try to get my flu vaccinations every year. I got mine this past December at my doctor's office, who even advised, hey, the way things are going, you don't need the booster, don't worry about it. And I'm like, wow, cool. So there's that. But the whole point I'm getting to is, we have this stuff, and now Big Brother, government, who's gotten even bigger since the Clintons, bigger than I've ever seen it, with the enforcing the mandates, which luckily so far have been pushed back as of last week, which is good, considering what my company that I work with was about to go under to try to keep up with this mess. And I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me. And it's like, we have a fear of something, whether it's a fear of disciplining your kids. Now we have a fear of this virus. What are we going to do? We're going to throw drugs at it. Where do the drugs come? China. Most of this stuff is coming from China. And if you don't want to get poked, I respect that too. And again, now that it's been almost 2 years, we have a lot of good data about what's good, what's not good, effects, etc. I'm not getting into that because I'm not a doctor, but we should be allowed to talk about this stuff. And luckily, some things are allowing to go, okay, we're not going to do this to you. We're not going to delete you. You can talk now, kind of thing. It's like, wow, thanks, Big Brother, for allowing us to have a conversation. This is nuts. And it's, when they hold a fear over us, they just want us to go, here, let's throw some drugs at it. You have a fear of or stress of et cetera, and you're getting overweight over it because people like comfort eating and stress eating. And what does it do to us? It gets us big. I got up to 300 pounds and I started having all sorts of issues. My doctor's like, you're diabetic. I had to change my diet, and I'm, lost about 100 pounds. Actually 110 to be precise. And then I've gained a little back, but I've been maintaining around 200 pounds, which is good. But, we just, I don't know where I was going with this, but this accidental thought of common sense has turned into longer than a short story in a paragraph. So, but I guess my point is that we got to learn to say no, and we got to stand up for ourselves. And standing up for ourselves is the same as allowing kids to tease each other. The left wants to use the word bully. Well, they're a bully. We can't bully. We have bullies here. We don't know, blah, blah, blah. Well, let me tell you, that's how your skin gets tough. That's how you learn to be able to take care of yourself, to be able to take some criticism and learn from it, and not worry about what other people think of you, your self-perception. That has to be taken down a notch, because once we start letting the whiny snitch snatchers take over the world and let our kids rule us, we have lost the fight, and we may not be able to get back. That's what we're having to deal with now, from kids that were 10, 12 years old that I kind of helped taught, well, anywhere from 10 to 18, really. From 1997, 1998, how old are they now? I bet they've had kids. What are their kids doing? What are their kids acting like? How are they behaving? What could be the real result and the effects of long-term Ritalin and getting it into bloodstream and having those effects genetically going forward into your next of kin, into your kids that you sire, etc., etc. It kind of makes me wonder. It really does. You know, how much genetics are they playing with? Read the first few paragraphs of Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park. Check the date when that was written. Yeah, it's kind of fantasy fiction in a way. But still, it's very interesting what Michael Crichton was writing about playing with genetics with Jurassic Park, and how that could be in play with us individually today, and how these use of these drugs that we take, whether it's metformin, like I've had to take an insulin, or all these other things that we have to give ourselves and take, how it's affecting our kids after we have kids, after taking some of this stuff long term, or Ritalin, or et cetera, or your statin drugs. You know, things that make you wonder, things that make you go, could I have been better off without it? Could I have lived this long? Would I be dead if I didn't have these drugs? Was I supposed to die 3 years ago? You know, should I be here? Etc., etc. And that's where also faith can come into a little bit as well. I'm running out of time. Thanks for listening and just bearing out with me. Definitely a lot of to think on, a lot to chew on and think about concerning where we've come from. And I really think the Clinton era did much more the starting of the disintegration of our country more than anything. And even if you don't believe in my political views, it just feels like Obama 2.0 all over again for me with this administration. And who knows who's pulling these two people's strings between our current ex-vice president and the current vice president. Our current ex-vice president is calling president already. So, you know, there's that. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Didn't mean to get too political. Things are just getting really strange.